Good morning, everybody. Another morning and another set of results from Southern Cross Gold. Today, we're talking about Apollo and some drill results. And we're not just talking about Apollo, where we've done a lot of drilling, where we did a lot of the earlier drilling before we made that amazing discovery 450 meters west at Rising Sun. We're talking of Apollo Deep. And you wouldn't have heard of Apollo Deep before because it's actually just a new area we've defined. So we've drilled 3 holes, two which are the key holes here, hole 93 and 97A. They both went into this new area, and Apollo looks like it's getting better at depth, which is fantastic. And guess what? 450 meters west to Rising Sun, that got better at depth also. So what we've drilled here is hole 97A. It was something like 227 meters at 1.8 grams gold equivalent over its whole length. But again, it was made up of a number of high-grade vein sets. In this instance, it was 10 high-grade vein sets. It started in the upper Apollo zone and then traversed into the lower Apollo zone, which we call Apollo Deep, below a fault called the Redback Fault. So it's understanding that structural architecture that's allowed us to target that offset beneath the fault, beneath the upper part of Apollo. So that's an amazing result in itself. We had assays up to 64.5 grams gold. We had 11 intersections greater than 15 grams gold in that hole alone. So that was the first part of this press release, is that we're starting to see a better part of Apollo develop and starting to see very good drill holes through that lower area. And then perhaps not as flashy in terms of numbers, but very important, a really important point is that the hole 93, which defined 4 new vein structures in that Apollo Deep area. So we drilled further west beneath Apollo than we've ever drilled before. So mineralization was thought to stop at what was the Gladys vein, which was historically mined above, and we drilled to that. And before we really understood the offset between Rising Sun and Apollo, and that offset's formed by another fault we call the Golden Orb. So you're getting the theme of the spiders, the Golden Orb and the Redback. We'd never drilled to the Golden Orb, and we found 4 veins within that 100 meters or so that had been poorly, or in effect never tested previously. They were only thin results, so 0.3 at 9 grams gold, 0.2 at 11 grams gold, those kind of numbers. But we know these veins can get much better along strike when they get into the key part of the main host structure. So 4 new rungs of the ladder added here. So 2 very strong results within a new area, Apollo Deep, that we're now starting to define. These areas were targeted because our technical team is really starting to understand the structural architecture of this project now. So we know not only where the host is, the rails of the ladder, we know where the rungs of the ladder are, the vein sets when they've been drilled, and we're drilling more of them all the time. But we also know where the ladder gets offset, and there's a number of key faults that offset tens of meters, and for that reason, we're able to better target the mineralization, the extensions of it, when we understand where the faults are and the movement or the offset that has occurred along those faults. We have 17 holes in the lab or processing at the time of this press release, and a number of those holes that we're processing are follow-up holes from 97A and 93. We knew that we liked what we saw in those holes. The assays didn't disappoint. So we have at least 4 key holes, 106, 108A, 109, 112, that are key holes as a follow-up in this Apollo Deep area. So stay tuned. Okay, now we're just going to have a look at where these results sit in 3 dimensions, and we'll get Leapfrog out and spend a few minutes spinning that around. Okay, here we are looking at Leapfrog Central, which is an online version of Leapfrog. What we have here is basically our 1.2 kilometers from Christina here, Golden Dyke through here, Rising Sun, Apollo, out to Apollo East, where we're starting to find mineralization. We're looking down like a bird, looking down, and here's the scale. But we're not going to be looking down for very long. What we can see are all the drill traces here with the gold greater than 1 gram per ton shown. And you can see now the veins just colored separately for the different areas. So we have Rising Sun, of course, going down to nearly 1 kilometer, Apollo extending down to a much shallower depth, about 650 meters. And then just initial indications here around the Golden Dyke area and the new holes we put here a few months, stepping about another 250 meters towards the old Christina workings, which haven't been drilled yet, apart from a couple of holes from the 60s drilled through there. So we can start to see the rungs of the ladder being those veins, and you can get an idea that they're all form within the host sequence, which are the rails of the ladder. If we just look down again, the rails of the ladder basically run east-west. Now, something else to keep an eye on is just the faulting. We talked about the fault architecture. We put 2 of the faults on here. 1 fault here. I should take 1 fault off just to make it simpler for you. That is the Golden Orb Fault. And you can see how the mineralization truncates against this in Rising Sun. And that's the reason we only saw 1 of the veins make it to surface at Rising Sun. And the poor old timers missed out on all these development of these veins as they went to depth. And that forms the offset between Apollo. If we just look down again, you can see Rising Sun here and Apollo here. So literally it's slipped down to the south here from Rising Sun to Apollo. So that's 1 fault. The other fault that we just had on briefly there before is the Redback Fault. And that's really where we start to talk about understanding Apollo and at depth. So I'll take off the Golden Orb Fault, and you can start to see that Redback Fault dissecting what is Apollo upper through here and Apollo deep through here. And it was really only by understanding this fault that we saw the opportunity for Apollo deep here to develop, and it's starting to look very similar, better results down here in terms of observations and some of the initial assays we've got back, similar to what we're seeing at depth in Rising Sun. So we'll, with the magic of video editing, now take off all the holes immediately and just be left with the holes from this press release. So here we are again, all the veins and the workings, Golden Dyke, Rising Sun, Apollo, and just the 3 holes that we released in this press release. So we have 97A, which is the lower one here, 93, which is this one here, and 95, which I haven't spoken a little bit. It got a couple of sniffs in the top of the hole, but it started to deviate too far to the south and was moving out of the host. So we terminated that hole, and we can come back later, put a wedge down that hole and swing it back to the north and target the mineralization where we want to within the host sequence. So if we just zoom in here, we can start to see these are the 4 new veins here drilled in 93 that we hadn't seen before. If you can start to see that those are the veins there, and you can start to see that they form beneath that Redback Fault. And probably what they do is, if we just take the fault off just very quickly here, and we can start to see that they probably line up to some of the workings out here. This is the root hog shaft that exists a long way away. If we measure, just to give you a bit of an idea how far that is away, if we can get onto it there, that's 400 meters away. But it looks like that may be the extension to the surface, and of course they could equally extend to depth. So a very exciting opportunity there. And then you can start to see 97A here. It's about 50 meters apart where they drilled in the same position here in the same parts of the mineralization. Because of the host, you're starting to move into a very different part of the sequence. You can see there. So they drilled these set of veins in the host position. So that was the 297 meters that we drilled between those two results there. So a very exciting outcome. You can see that we're extending some of those veins to depth just in the projections, but there's still a hell of a lot more to do in this Apollo deep area. And you can just see up here the old shaft from Apollo that was 100 meters deep. So you can start to see that, you know, getting down to a kilometer at these depths. And little did the old timers know what they were just mucking around with. They were just touching the sides of what was being found beneath Apollo. And likewise, we know that Rising Sun only had that one vein, and there's so much more that's developing at depth in this project. So that's the roundup for today's set of results. Perhaps a little bit more detail to try and explain the importance of them. It certainly fits our strategy of targeting grade, and we've seen lots of grade in these drill holes. Increasing the volume, we're finding 4 new veins. We've found a new area developing at Apollo Deep, so very much fitting that strategy. And of course, the third part of the strategy is showing the district scale, which this one was more focused on that core drill area. So keep your eyes on our news flow. Last week, we put out the metallurgy, more drill results today. We're coming up with an exploration target, a lot more drill results to flow. We'll talk more about the geological continuity of the veins and why we think and these are all hanging together the way we're modeling them. So lots to come. We've got all the drill rigs, 3 rigs drilling right at this moment. The 4th rig is just going through a refurbishment. It will be back in a few weeks drilling with the 4 rigs again. So all happening at the start of 2024 for Southern Cross Gold.